Hey everyone, I'm Clayton from Ascendo, and I'm here with Siddharth from Nuo, and we're going to talk a bit about Nuo. Siddharth, maybe you want to tell us about your position with Nuo?
Yeah. So hi guys. I'm Siddharth. I'm the co-founder of Nuo.network. I handle the product side and everything else that anyone else does not want to do at Nuo. Uh,
Sounds right for a co-founder.
yeah. So Nuo.network essentially is a decentralized debt marketplace which connects lenders and borrowers. I'll let Clayton take the
Sure,
lead from here.
great. So you connect lenders and borrowers, and we've been looking at different DeFi products in this group. So I think a lot of people here are familiar with Compound and DYDX. Those are the two I talk about most often. So maybe you
Right.
could tell us a little bit about how you're different from those ones.
Right, sure. So let's talk about Compound, right? So Compound is essentially a money market where one user puts in the funds into Compound, and those funds, while gaining interest in the reserve pool of Compound,
Mm-hmm.
you can actually collateralize those funds and take a loan out of that there, and take another position in Ether or whatever you're taking a loan in. But what Compound does is it only does an over collateralized loan. You cannot ever take an under collateralized loan in Compound.
Sure, sure.
And that is the basic difference uh, between how Nuo works and how Compound works.
Hmm.
Uh, on the application side, of course, architecturally it is a lot more different, wherein we are pretty much oblivious to what applications of debt Nuo can support. Uh, Nuo's architecture is built in such a way that it can support any kind of debt. What we are doing currently is over collateralized loans and under collateralized loans. And
Right.
what Compound is not doing is probably under collateralized loans.
Compound is not doing under collateralized. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. So let me break down a couple of things that you talked about here. There was two things that stood out to me. The first was the under collateralized loans is a really interesting topic, and then the second was this thing about being able to take on any type of debt. I
That's
think is
right.
what
Yeah.
you said. So let's talk about the first one. And let me just explain for everyone with MakerDAO and with Compound and DYDX. When you want to borrow Ethereum, for example, you have to typically you have to stake collateral up to 150% or maybe 125% of the value of what you're borrowing. The idea,
Usually more. Yeah.
usually more, right? So that's like the minimum. Like with Maker, that's 150 is the minimum. So if you got to 149% because of the value change of your collateral, you would get liquidated. So you're right. You want to be even higher. Um, and what that does is it protects lenders. So if the value of Ethereum falls even quickly, there's a chance to liquidate the collateral in time to maintain the value of the lenders, what the lenders have put in. So that being said, that's why those are over collateralized. Siddharth, can you explain how an under collateralized loan works on Nuo?
Right. So the basic difference between an over collateralized and an under collateralized loan is that an over collateralized loan, you can actually withdraw the funds that you borrow into wherever you want. And
Okay,
you can do that in Compound as well as in Nuo.
sure.
But in an under collateralized loan, what happens is that you are the funds that you actually borrow in a 2x or a 3x leverage that Nuo allows. Those funds are immediately converted into any position that you want. So suppose you want to go long on Ethereum, 3x long on Ethereum. What you do is you actually put in, say, one Ethereum as collateral
Mm-hmm.
and borrow 3 Ethereum worth of DAI on our platform,
Okay,
and that gets converted into 3 Ethereum. That DAI, 3 Ethereum worth of DAI gets converted into 3 Ethereum all in one click. And what
right.
happens is that this 3 Ethereum that has been, that DAI has converted into, now sits in one of the smart contracts of Noah called the kernel escrow contract.
Okay,
So basically, you as a user will never have access to withdraw this 3 Ether,
got
because
it.
it only makes sense to withdraw more than what you've put in as collateral.
Sure.
Having said that, you can take a position which is much with much higher leverage than you would have in any other platform.
Ah, okay. And so let me paint an example and see if I understand this correctly. So let's say that Ethereum was trading for $333. You could put in one Ethereum and receive $1,000 worth of DAI,
That's
and
right.
with those $1,000 buy 3 Ethereum.
That's right.
I'm right so far. Okay. And so those 3 Ethereum and your initial Ethereum, you still own the underlying Ethereum that you put on as collateral, right? So at that
So
point,
it's actually
gotcha. So now you're responsible for the value of 4 Ethereum, but you don't own and control 4 Ethereum.
absolutely, but the beauty is that you don't need to just put in Ethereum as the collateral. You can put in, for example, BAT as a collateral, or Link as a collateral,
Yep.
or DAI as a collateral, whatever you want. Yeah.
And so then what happens in that example that I just painted if the value of Ethereum fell to $300, for example?
Yeah. So essentially, what we do is the backend system actually always is calculating for every trade or margin trade, is what we call this particular or under collateralized loan. For every margin trade, we actually keep checking whether the value of the collateral that the user has put in plus the trade position that he has it ever become lesser than the amount that he had borrowed and he has to repay. If it any time becomes lesser, that's when we liquidate that particular trade. We liquidate that 3 Ether in this example into whatever DAI that could have been received with that 3 Ether at that particular point, and give. And of course, if at all we require the collateral, so we liquidate the collateral as well to whatever DAI that one Ether can receive, and then club up all this DAI and put it back into the reserve pool, so that lenders are never at a loss. Also, we have introduced a mechanism of a buffer, which we actually keep to ensure that any slippage or any liquidation issues do not hamper the principal and the interest of the lenders.
Sure, sure. So in the example that I just said, if the value were to fall from 333 down to 300, you
Right.
would liquidate the entire position, is that right? Or you just
So
do it piecemeal?
no. So in one transaction, everything will happen. So essentially, first the smart contracts will see. So once it is decided that okay, it needs to get liquidated, what happens is first the smart contract will see will liquidate the trade amount, that is the 3 Ether, into the DAI, because that's what needs to be. And if it is
you'd
enough
have
to
900 DAI in this case. In the example I painted, you'd have 900 DAI.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So in the example that you had borrowed 1,000 DAI, suppose you get 900 DAI from the trade position, from the 3 Ether in the then you require another 100 DAI plus interest to be repaid back to the reserve pool. So that is now obtained from the collateral. So 1 Ether worth of collateral would ideally provide 300 DAI, right? So you just require 100 and say 105 DAI because of the interest component as well. So you just liquidate say 1/3 or a little more than 1/3 of Ether, and then the remaining, then it goes to the reserve pool. The 1,005 DAI goes to the reserve pool, and the remaining Ether, which is around 230 Ether, goes back into the user's, the borrower or the trader's trading account.
Okay, and so they receive the same type of collateral that they put in, just a lesser amount of it to cover the loss. Is that right?
Absolutely. So the beauty is a trader can also put in a stop loss in our system. Suppose he wants only say 40% of the collateral of the collateral's value to go away or diminish, and he's okay with 40% of it going away. He can actually put in 40% as stop loss, and the smart contracts will handle it in such a way that it liquidates when 60% is remaining and 40% is sorry, 60% is exhausted and 40% is remaining, or the other way around. Yeah.
Okay. And so in the example that we just talked about, I guess the one thing that I'm not clear on yet is there still a position open when you've sold some of that Ether to cover the price change? Does a person still have leverage, or is it sort of like they've now exited the leveraged position?
absolutely exited all leverage. The margin trade has ended.
Okay.
The the traders trading contract, or rather the trading account receives back the collateral, whatever was remaining,
Okay.
and the trade was.
And if they want to open a new position with that remaining Ethereum, they can do so. It would just be a fresh arrangement.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. And that the numbers that we've been talking about, which is, would you call that 4x leverage? Is that how you would describe that? Is that, or would you say 3x leverage?
I would say 3x because a user can actually put in any collateral. But if he puts in Ether as a collateral and if he's going long on Ether, then it technically becomes 4x. Yes.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay, right, that makes perfect sense. And so what we're saying then is that an under-collateralized loan, the minimum amount would be 33%. Is that the right way to say it?
No. It's not the minimum amount. You can actually play with 1x, 2x, or 3x. So that's completely up to your risk appetite. You can play with whatever leverage you want.
But 1x leverage would be 50% of the, would be you put in half of the value in collateral. Is that right? I'm trying to put this in terms of
yes.
Compound 150%. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
And so,
3x leverage, you put in 1/3 of the amount.
Sure.
Sorry. Yep. So let's just start with a clean slate on this particular thing. In 1x leverage, you actually put the 100% of the collateral amount as what you want to borrow and trade.
Right.
In 2x leverage, you put 1/2, and 3x leverage, you put 1/3.
Got it. Okay, perfect. So now we've kind of explained this under collateralized loan with Nuo that doesn't. I don't think DYDX offers that, do they?
DYDX only offers under collateralized loans. They do not offer the over collateralized loans.
Okay, so they're also doing something similar, basically, in that regard.
That's okay. So they are doing something similar in the under collateralized loans. Compound is doing something. I mean, we are doing something similar to DYDX in the under collateralized bit. We're doing something similar to Compound in the over collateralized bit. But as I said, that we are protocol, or our architecture is done in such a way that we support any form of debt. So tomorrow we would want to add any other product. It'll be, we should be the fastest and the first one to actually add that particular debt mechanism. Okay. Also, one major difference between, currently the major difference between, Compound and DYDX and No, which we haven't really touched upon in this particular call as of now, is the portion on the lender's side. So we've just spoken about the borrower trader side.
Yep.
What about the lender side, right? So lenders see a very different behavior on No as compared to DYDX and Compound.
Right.
One such difference is that at No, you do not get a fixed interest every single block time or every single day. You do not get a fixed interest. You get a different interest. Just a minute, sorry.
No worries.
So I guess we should start over with the lender side.
Yeah, you're fine. Just carry on.
Okay, yeah. So one difference is
interest, right? Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
I'm just reminding you that you were saying it's not fixed interest as with the Compound.
Right. So at No, you do not get a fixed interest on every day or every block time as compared to what you get in No in Compound or DYDX. What happens is that every time a borrower repays a loan, or a trader repays or a trader liquidates his trade position, or the system liquidates the trade position due to stop loss or whatever the reason is. Sure. That is the time when the reserve pool gets replenished by all the interest that the loan had to give back. Right. And that is the time when the lenders of the reserve pool, or rather the holders or the stakeholders of the reserve pool, who essentially lended funds into NO, that is when they actually receive interest. That's why you see a very varying curve of interest received on NO. So on one day you would actually receive 2% on DAI, and on another day, in fact, never 2%. I think 6% on DAI, and on another day you would actually end up getting 40% is what we've seen for some as well, because there were a lot of liquidations that happened. So on NO, one has to be a little bit more patient with gaining interest once he puts in the funds. Having said that, NO, we are giving the best interest rates across the industry for almost every token. So you're getting somewhere around 20% in USDC and around 18% on DAI right now.
So I'm going to switch to my own dashboard on Nuo because I have a few. I want to show people what you're talking about, and I have a few questions for you as well. I'm going to do a screen share, and I'm hoping that it picks up on the video that I'm recording. Okay. So here is my Nuo account. So I right now I have 3, I guess you would call them loan offers, 50 TUSD, 1,000, and almost 950 DAI. These are separate deposits that I made. Now, my experience when I deposited these was that I think the duration counter, this is number of days, went from 2 to 3, and there was no action here. Like after 3 days, there was still saying 0.00. And I went into your Telegram to ask a question about that, and your admin named Helpful Brother, I think, explained to me what you just explained, which is that you only get paid when there's liquidations. And then I think there was some other detail that it happens every, some sort of like every day at the same time or something. Was I remembering that?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So essentially the interest, the reserve pool gets distributed to the reserve pool holders. That is, one of them is you for DAI and TUSD. The interest gets distributed into the reserve pool holders, and it comes under this gains section or the gains column that you're seeing once every day. That happens at around 12 a.m. GMT or UTC.
Sure. And also this potential gains, I think was explained to me that it's anticipated in a 30-day window. Is that right?
So actually this has been changed. It is anticipated in a 30 to 90-day window, but this number is usually the least that you will get. Like this is the bare minimum that you will get in that 90-day period that we're talking about, because this accounts for the loans that have already been taken and will eventually repay or will get liquidated on our platform, and the lenders will get this interest. But what it does not account for is the fact that you would that the NO platform will actually issue more loans and issue more trades, which usually happens on an everyday basis, and users will return that particular amount and gain interest as well. So that is the component that is missing in the potential gain. So you can consider this as the bare minimum that you would receive.
Okay. And you said it was over which time period, the bare minimum?
So it's a maximum loan duration is actually is actually 90 days.
Okay.
So 90 days is like the broad spectrum of it, but usually the median is around 30 days.
But from a lender perspective, I'm looking at this number. How can I understand that as a lender? Because hold on a moment. This loan that I have here, is this matched to a particular borrower? Is it?
Sorry, which loan are you?
I'm sorry. So I have three loan offers here.
Okay, so the way the lending bit works on NO is that a lender actually puts in all the funds, whatever he wants to put in. So you've put in, say, 1,000 DAI, and that 1,000 DAI is now sitting in a pool of reserves called the reserve pool. Mm-hmm. If you just go to the main page, like app.no.network, the home page.
Okay.
Over here, you will see, and if you go to lend now on the bottom right, lend now, yeah, go down in the table. Yeah, so if you see over here, the reserve pool for DAI has around $2 million. So you own around you own $1,000 out of this $2 million. Right. So that is approximately 0.05%, right? So you own that much part of the reserve pool right now by providing 1,000 DAI into the reserve pool.
Sure.
Now from this reserve pool is where the borrowers and the traders are rather borrowing the funds from. So once they return the funds, it actually enters into the reserve pool once again. And from this reserve pool at 12 a.m. UTC, it gets distributed to all the DAI stakeholders of this reserve pool, depending on depending on which loans were repaid and how much interest was generated in that particular 1 day interval.
I see. And so what this means, you've explained that you need to be patient, and I guess in my own scheming way, I thought about, like, I wonder if there's a way to predict when there's going to be more repayments or liquidations and like dump a bunch of DAI in here to capture that. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, that is possible, but that's why we have actually that's the reason why we do not let the first day, we do not let the reserve holders generate any interest, just to prevent this particular situation. So if you see, the first day, you would have never received any interest in the first 24-hour window. As you said, for 2 days, you would not receive. So the whole reason for that is because so that, lenders or other money market players do not fool the system or game the system.
Sure. Yeah, and from a user perspective, I'm accustomed to Compound or DYDX or even Dharma, which has that that ticker that shows your interest growing all the way down to like the Brazilian percentile. So I found it a bit disconcerting at first that it just stayed zero, right? But the numbers, the numbers that I'm seeing over time are starting to make more sense. I just wanted to see real quick. So I did like a really rough calculation. This right here is reflecting 14% return on DAI, but it's such a small sample size that it's not actually reflective of what I would expect. I understand that now. And in fact, I think this number will probably take a jump up shortly.
Exactly. So I had been, doing some number digging in the last few days, and we are actually, over the last 81 days, DAI reserve holders have actually received 23.64% APR in the last 81 days. Yeah.
That's compellingly higher than the other options here. You see I'm on LoanScan here. So yeah, I notice on LoanScan you have DAI earning at 20.37%. Can you explain why, hold on a second. Yeah, how it is that you can borrow for less than you're earning? How is that?
This is like the top favorite question, right? So in fact, we're just going to add that to the FAQ as well. So what's happening is that, first of all, I want to tell you that it is happening. So, I mean, I just told you that in the last 81 days, users have actually received 24%, around 24% interest. Now I'll tell you the reason why that happens, right? There are two reasons. One reason is that the loans that are taken on our platform, they actually they have a fixed interest component. Now they do not the interest that the borrowers or the traders are paying for that particular loan amount that they've borrowed is not on a per day basis. It is actually on a first duration basis. So if I have taken a loan of say 28 days, and if I repay that loan in 2 days, I still end up paying the interest of 28 days. So that is the reason why, that is one reason why interest rates for the lenders are much higher. The other reason that the interest rates are much higher than the borrower is that a borrower sticks to his interest. Basically, it's a fixed interest for the borrower. So at a previous point in time, when the reserve utilization was much higher than what it is right now, borrowers or traders have actually borrowed at a much higher percentage than what you're seeing right now in the borrowing the borrowing percentage. So these two are the reasons why lenders are actually earning much more I mean, the lending APR is much more than the borrowing APR at this current moment.
I see.
This will change.
So it has more to do with kind of the way that the data is reported and how it interacts with your system, because the way your system's designed. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now I have a question for you about decentralization. To what degree do you describe yourself as decentralized, and which components would you say are more centralized?
Right. So actually, the way we see it is, Noah is decentralized enough for not having custody of any funds and not ever having control of any funds that flow into the system.
Okay.
But it is architected in such a way that the user experience is almost similar to a Web 2 product that you use, or to a banking product you use, or any other Web 2 product that a user is most familiar with.
Okay.
Now, if you see things like meta transactions, Noah is probably the most widespread use of meta transaction use case that we have seen, at least across DeFi. And that is one of the reasons why users are really loving us. Users are not having to wait for any transaction happening on the Ethereum. They don't have to wait on their portal. The relayers of Noah take care of that. They do not need to worry about having gas in there, or Ethereum has gas in their wallets.
Mm-hmm.
The relayers are worrying about that. So there are a lot of UX innovations that we've added. We made sure that the custody of the funds are never with Noah, and we can never control the funds.
So what are you using a partner for the meta transactions, or is that something you do on your end?
So we are actually exploring ways to outsource this as well, to make it absolutely open, and anyone can just download an SDK from us and start their relayer network. We're working our way towards that. Currently, it is handled by relayers at Noah itself.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And what are risks that you would warn people about with using Nua? What are the risks?
I mean, there are two aspects, right? One is the lender and one is the borrower.
Okay.
So from the lender's perspective, I would the risk that we very clearly mentioned in the FAQs as well. The risk associated would be that a flash crash happens in the market, mm-hmm. and the slippage while converting the collateral into the lending token during a stop loss, or during a trigger, stop loss trigger on our platform. Our partner exchanges, which is Kyber and Uniswap, and we are going to add a bunch more, but Kyber and Uniswap currently, they give a much higher slippage than what we expect. Mm-hmm. And while we have placed the mechanisms in place, to prevent such high slippages for illiquid tokens like Link or Rep or BAT or 0x, this is one of the risks that a lender on Noah signs up for.
Okay, and in that event, I guess I'm curious, do you have different collateral requirements for different currencies depending on your riskiness?
Absolutely. So based on some learnings that we've had in the last few weeks, okay, we have actually implemented that right now. So since the last 1 week or so, we are having different collateral requirements, different minimum collateral requirements for every token involved in the loan, and different buffer ranges as well, due to the illiquidity of different tokens. Okay. Like for example, when ETH DAI is involved, the buffer is around 10 to 15%. I'm forgetting what the number is. Whereas when a Link or a 0x is involved, the buffer goes up to 50%. Okay.
And are you interested in sharing? You said there were some learnings in the last few weeks. Is that something that happened on your platform?
Yeah. So basically, we had one day in which there were a lot of rep holders which lost funds from as lenders. They lost some funds, and the reason why that happened was, as we've actually given out a community update. I can share you the link. I can share with you the link which we have written out. But the primary reason was slippage, which we had faced with Kyber and Uniswap. So that reason, based on those learnings, we've actually put in these recommendations in place.
So what I'm curious about though is the person, it's actually the lender, or sorry, the borrower who staked, or who offered the rep as collateral. Is that right? And then
So in that particular case, the issue was that it was a rep holder or a rep lender who had actually lent out his rep tokens, and there was a user who would probably go long on 0x, or rather go long on BAT by putting by borrowing rep. So basically, he had essentially what was the exact issue? The collateral was rep, and the collateral was BAT, and the and the borrow token was rep. Right. So basically, the borrower had borrowed rep, and he had put in collateral as BAT. And because value had gone down so much, the augur rep value had gone down so much. So basically, we had to liquidate that BAT. Sorry, the BAT value had gone down so much.
That's what I was.
We had to liquidate.
Okay, now that makes sense. Yep.
Into rep. Yeah, and that's when we had seen a slippage of around 40%, which really opened our eyes. And that was not a one-off order. It was like a bunch of loans that got liquidated at the same time. That's why one of the orders received a 40% slippage. So that's why we put in these mechanisms in place.
And so I'm curious, as a lender, like I've lent DAI to the platform, but I don't have any say about like whether I'm willing to accept BAT as a collateral, right? Like you're doing that as a platform. So I'm curious how you handle those losses, and like, I guess the person who lent rep wouldn't have chosen that BAT would have been the collateral for it. So how exactly do you don't socialize the losses? Is it's just, how does that work exactly?
So we socialize the losses to all the reserve pool holders. So basically, you have, so as you had put in 1,000 DAI in the $2 million DAI pool, if at all DAI ever faces a loss, which till date DAI has never faced a loss because DAI has good enough liquidity, and even ETH and a bunch of other tokens. But if at all a token ever faces a loss, all the reserve holders of that token will bear that particular loss. It's not only one particular. That's number one. And number two is that we actually have, since we now have taken that learning, and now we've put in these buffers to 50% buffer and the 40% buffer. So that is also one comforting factor for the lender, that okay, a BAT loan or a 0x loan or a link loan will have a high enough buffer for me to not worry about the slippage. The third thing that we're also implementing is something called an insurance fund, like something like a SAFU. That's pretty much self-explanatory. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess the only other thing I'm not quite getting though is, you said, like, for instance, I'm lending DAI, but the problem is never that what I'm lending loses value, because all you ever owe me is the thing I've lent you. So let's say I lent you something that actually has variable value by design. So let's say I lent Ethereum. If the value of Ethereum goes to half, that's not actually a problem as a lender. You just have to give me my Ethereum back, the same number of Ethereum back. But it is a problem if the collateral goes to half. So
that's right.
So for example, I'm lending you DAI right now on Nuo, but let's say that, I guess what I'm still not fully understanding is, like, you explained that the value of BAT went down. But I don't think those losses impacted me, or maybe they did. How do you distribute, which asset are you deciding to distribute the losses to in the rare example of this happening? Do you follow?
So,
yeah.
I'm not sure if I follow the question, but I think another difference between Compound and Noah, probably that, this question is coming from Compound, is the collateral that you use, that a borrower or a trader uses on our platform, is not part of the reserve pool. That is a standalone collateral that a borrower uses. So if at all you've borrowed by using BAT as a collateral, the BAT losing value will never have any effect on the reserve pool of BAT. because your collateral, which is BAT, has lost value, and that is only particular. Your collateral is only restricted to that particular trade or loan that you've taken.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I answered your question because I did not understand it fully.
Sure.
If you want to repeat.
Well, I'm not going to belabor the point too much. I think what I'll probably do is try to write it out and send it to you. I mean, you definitely explained the way that these different things work quite well, and I think that this is definitely a learning process for these different platforms anyway. And so, like responding the way that you did with a buffer, and then obviously an insurance fund, I think is the way to do it. Yeah, definitely. So I guess I'm curious. I have two more questions for you. One is just the broad question of, is there anything else that you want to make sure people know about Nuo? Anything else? Yeah.
I just want to point out that we are coming out with a brand new Nuo scan, which will enhance the transparency of the platform and
Okay.
make it much more comfortable. That's the purpose. So yeah, wait for that. And we are also going to announce a few exciting things in the weeks to come.
Okay.
In terms of product, in terms of company, everything. So
Nice.
yeah, just brace yourselves and wait for the announcements.
And Nuo Scan, do you have kind of a estimated date on that?
So it should be out in the next 3 weeks.
Okay.
So somewhere around middle.
Pretty soon. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that for sure. So I'd like to know, let's say you're at a family gathering, like a holiday that brings in distant family, and an uncle asks you what you do for work, and you don't want to take over the entire meal talking about it, right? How do you answer that question?
Wow. This has happened twice to me. Once, so I've just been recently married. So it happened once with my in-law side, and I had to spend the entire dinner answering that question. Yeah, I mean, I've never actually shied away from answering that. I always, go to the fundamentals of cryptocurrency and fundamentals of how DeFi is so much more awesome than the normal traditional finance. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how I answer it. I don't know how to avert it. Please help me with that.
Okay. No, that's great. I was just curious. So it sounds like you're just like, okay, the rest of the meal, this is what we're talking about. Like this turned into a cryptocurrency talk. It sounds like that's what you do.
Like you asked.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I love it. I like to hear how different people answer that question. Some people are just like, yeah, I do work in financial industry, and other people are like, let me tell you about the revolutions in currency.
No, so once the discussion started from what I do, and it ended up with why is dollar, what is the backing of dollar, and it went down to a lot of political and socio-economic political.
I love it. Cool. Well, Siddharth, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about Nuo, and I look forward to seeing the things that roll out. If people want to understand more about Nuo or maybe join your community, where do you suggest they go?
So first of all, create an account on our website, nuo.network, and then come to a Telegram for any questions. We have a drift mechanism where you can just ask your questions on our website. There is a pop-up that comes on the top, on the bottom right or somewhere. You can just ask questions there. We are answering questions. We have just added a support team member into our team, so hopefully you should be answering questions from the next week onwards on every platform. Great. Telegram is the go-to. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I did have some questions about like why I wasn't seeing interest in those 2 days, and I did get help right away when I asked those questions on your Telegram. So I can second that. So, well, thanks so much for taking the time, and we'll be in touch. All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Clayton.
Take care. Bye-bye.